My name is Joe Seconder, Dunwoody City Council member and retired U.S. Army Major, and I'm honored to act as your Master of Ceremony for this morning's Veterans Day ceremony here in Dunwoody. President Biden has reminded us in his Veterans Day proclamation, for generations, millions of Americans have answered the call to serve, taking the sacred oath to defend and preserve our nation's ideals of liberty and democracy. These patriots represent the best of us. On Veterans Day, we honor their service, dedication, and valor, and are forever grateful for their sacrifice. It is my pleasure to introduce Mayor Lynn Deutsch to welcome us here this morning. Mayor Deutsch.
Thank you, Joe. I'm so incredibly grateful that everyone is joining us today to honor those who have served our country so well and who continue to serve our country so well, and their families that support them. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to just ask our elected officials, I'm not going to call everybody out, just to raise your hand. We appreciate your support today. And take a special moment to remember the late Senator Max Cleland, who was a veteran and served our state and our country so well, and who we lost in the past few days. Thank you. How we honor our veterans is far more than what we do today. It's how we support them in our communities, when they come home, when they're in active service. And so I ask that everyone, as we leave today's ceremony, that we look towards how we honor veterans the other 364 days of the year. And so once again, thank you for coming, and thank you, Councilman Seconder, for serving us today as our MC.
Presenting the colors for this morning's ceremony, please welcome the Dunwoody High School Air Force Junior ROTC, led by Lieutenant Colonel Kenneth Bennett. If you're able, please rise and remain standing until the colors have been retired, following the Pledge of Allegiance and the singing of our national anthem.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Present.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rang there, the bombs bursting in air, gave through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-stained banner yet wave for the land of the free, and the home of
So I've been given a few moments here on the agenda here just to say a few words. I'd like to acknowledge the veterans and those currently serving. I'd like to ask, if you're so able to please rise. Veterans and current service members, please rise to be acknowledged. Thank you all. In the words of Winston Churchill, never was so much owed by so many to so few. I'd also like to acknowledge the military families that are here. And I'm going to break this down into 3 parts, so if you are a member of one of these 3 groups, I'd also appreciate if you wouldn't mind standing to be recognized. First, for those who've given the ultimate sacrifice and service to this nation that went and didn't return. If you're a spouse, a parent, or children, or family member that has had someone in your family that went to serve our nation that did not return, if you would so care to rise and be acknowledged and be acknowledged. Thank you so much. If you're a spouse, parent, or child of a veteran that was sent to combat into harm's way, please stand and be acknowledged. Thank you, and thank your families as well. And lastly, if anyone had a service member that simply served in the military, you're a child, a parent, a spouse, a veteran that served our military, please stand and be recognized. Thank you all. You know, I'd like to just acknowledge that sacrifice of those family members that were left behind to keep the torches burning, right? You know, we talk about the veterans that go overseas and we sign up and we do that, but you know, remember those spouses and family members that have to keep the torches burning and work for while we're deployed. So it's a little bit about myself. You know, we're going to talk about Veterans Day, but I'm a citizen soldier. I was in the National Guard, Reserve, and some active duty. Really living a parallel life for 23 years. I had a day job. I didn't put on the uniform. It was supposed to be 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer. Well, I enlisted in 1981. And that was, when were you going to go get called up? It was for maybe if there was a flood, civil disturbance or so on. Or it was going to be the big one, World War III. Here comes the Warsaw Pact nations heading into Western Europe, Fulda Gap, those kind of things, right? Total mobilization. That's the world I lived in. It was the Cold War, very end of it, right? I enlisted, it was 1981, and I joined the service, and I just wanted to be a part of that. But I really liked getting role models, confidence building. Really, everybody joins for different purpose, right? And you'd like to say it's service to nation. For me, it was that, but it was really me getting responsibility, getting role models, confidence building, progressive responsibility. So for those families that have folks that are getting out of high school and so on, I strongly encourage to at least acknowledge and consider potential service to our nation in the military and the armed forces. It's a great experience. You're going to get a great responsibility and leadership and so on. You know, in the military you get amazing and unamazing experiences, right? It's that hurry up and wait, and then it's intensity and boredom as well. But you know, one of the biggest things I miss about serving in the military that you really don't have in the civilian world is the esprit de corps, the camaraderie, and the teamwork. So, you know, teamwork is so huge in the military. If one person fails, we all fail. And I miss that. And it's not just one up of the other person. It's everybody coming together, collaborating. It's not putting anybody down. It's everybody. If one guy fails, everybody fails. And that's one of the good things that I remember of being in the military, and I miss that. You know, those of you that served, you kind of know what I mean, right? Let me share with you a quick story about my military service. 2002, you know, I was a reserve. I was actually living in Zurich, Switzerland, lovely place for my day job. And I would go to Heidelberg, Germany to go drilling. Does that sound pretty nice? I get the commissary, I go get some root beer. Can't buy root beer in Europe, or peanut butter and so on. But in 2002, we were told, be prepared, get ready. Something might be happening. So what did I do? Get your house in order. So what do? You got to make sure my spouse knows all the logins and the accounts for the banking. Do I update the will? I got additional life insurance coverage, right? And then so fast forward between the week between Christmas and New Year's, 2002, I'm back in South Carolina visiting my in-laws. I got a phone call. And it was a coded call. They told us there was some kind of code. I don't remember specifically the name, but it was something, you know, pretend like Buffalo Rain or something. Report in 10 business days, you're going to be on active duty, we've been mobilized. So that was the call between Christmas and New Year's while visiting family here. So when 10 business days later, on 14 January 2003, I had left my civilian job, hung up the civilian clothes, put on the uniform, give a leave of absence, and I report for active duty in Heidelberg, Germany, to the Army's 5th Corps, 10 business days later. Now, I had some weekend passes, and I went back to visit Kathleen at home, and my last one I remember before we deployed was less than 1 month later, on 10 February, Sunday. I remember that was a Sunday because of the weekend pass. How do I remember that? Because Valentine's Day, we were at Ramstein Air Force Base sitting on the tarmac waiting to fly out to Kuwait. So, that Sunday evening as I kissed my wife Kathleen goodbye, I didn't know what the future would hold. Neither did we. We didn't know we were going to go to war. I didn't know when we would see each other again. So hats off to my better half, Kathleen. Thank you for your service and support. And hats off to all those family members that have had to say goodbye to their loved ones as they deploy and head into harm's way in the unknown. So, as President Ronald Reagan proclaimed for Veterans Day back in 1986, on this special day, our hearts and thoughts turn to all of the nation's veterans. Let us reflect on the great achievements of those sacrifices preserved our freedom and our way of life. They are indeed worthy of a solemn tribute of a grateful nation. Thank you. for our invocation, delivering our invocation will be Reverend Kathy Brockman. Reverend Brockman serves as an associate pastor at Dunwoody United Methodist Church, where she has been on staff for 5 years. Her areas of responsibility include congressional care, women's and older adult ministries, and missions. She's been a DeKalb County resident for over 30 years, an undergraduate of Texas A&M University. She received her Master's of Divinity at Emory's Candler School of Theology. Kathy and her husband Bard have 2 grown sons, Ben and John. Ladies and gentlemen, Reverend Kathy Brockman.
Thank you. It's an honor for me to be here this day to celebrate with you. Please pray with me. Loving and gracious God, today we honor our veterans, worthy men and women who gave their best when they were called upon to serve and protect their country. We remember the sacrifices made by members of the military and their families. We know that they endured long seasons apart from loved ones, the disruption of moves and deployments, the stress of being sent to regions engulfed by violence, the repercussions of physical, spiritual, and moral injuries. Where the pain of those injuries persists, bring healing, O God. Where the memories of that trauma are harrowing, grant relief. Where the grief of those losses threaten to overwhelm, grant hope. We pray, O God, for those who serve this country now, especially for those in harm's way, asking that you shield them from danger and bring them home in safety. We pray, gracious God, for an end to all war. We pray that swords will be turned into plowshares and that peace will reign throughout the earth. We ask your blessing this day and always upon all veterans and those closest to them, that they may know the gift of your presence, and may the peace you give us, the peace that passes all human understanding, be the peace that guides and sustains us. Amen.
Our guest speaker this morning is Major Andrew Radloff, United States Air Force, call sign RadNav. He's the son of Dunwoody residents, Captain Wayne Radloff, United States Navy, retired, and Mrs. Debbie Radloff. Combined, Andrew, Wayne, and Debbie have served on active duty for just over half a century. Andrew was born in Chesapeake, Virginia. While Wayne was deployed to the 6th Fleet in the Mediterranean, he missed Andrew's first Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthday, and learning to walk. This is typical for so many of our veterans and their families. Andrew began elementary school in Dadito, Guam. Did I say that right? I should say Guam. And graduated from high school in Misawa, Japan. Along the way, he attended schools in Northern Virginia, Southern California, and Washington State. In a 20-year period while Andrew was growing up, the Radloffs moved 11 times, quite typical for many military families. Major Radloff earned his wings via the undergraduate navigation training program on board NAS Pensacola in 2012 and was winged by his mother and wife Marita, his high school sweetheart. Today, Andrew is designated a Senior Combat Systems Officer. Andrew and Marita have 2 sons, Revere and Rex. He's currently a detailer for nearly 2,000 pilots, navigators, and air battle management officers in the command and control, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance community. Major Radloff was a flight instructor for over 3 years at NAS Pensacola, and in 2019, Andrew was selected as the Air Force Instructor Navigator of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Major Andrew Radloff.
Whether you served 1 day, 1 year, or 30 years, many of you made the conscious decision to volunteer your life and the lives of your family members to be part of the greater whole, to don the uniform of your service and serve in your nation's military. And if you're a veteran here today, but were initially inducted into the service by military draft, by virtue of being in the audience today, you too have deep-rooted sense of duty and integrity only found in those few Americans who have lived the military way of life. I also want to take a moment to recognize all of our nation's former prisoners of war and thank you Thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for enduring and surviving captivity, and thank you for coming back to your family, your loved ones and friends who certainly must have suffered in their own way, not knowing your fate during your excruciating absence from home. At this time, I ask you all to take a moment during our celebration today, honoring veterans, to remind ourselves that we still have more than 82,000 brave service members missing, unaccounted for on the rolls of the Defense, Prisoner of War, and Military Personnel Office. DPMO is responsible for establishing and overseeing policies on the rescue of living Americans and the recovery of the remains of those who are missing in action from foreign battlefields. The United States government is committed to obtaining the fullest possible accounting for Americans held captive or otherwise missing from our nation's ongoing and past conflicts, to prepare and train personnel who may become isolated, and to recover those who become missing in the future. Please keep our missing heroes and their families in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you. On November 11th, 1918, Americans and allies across the globe effectively brought to an end World War I when Marshal Ferdinand Foch, Supreme Commander of the Allied armies, met with Germany's government representatives for the signing of an armistice at 11 a.m. in a railway carriage in the French forest near the Western Front. Some historians claim the last American killed during what President Woodrow Wilson declared was a war to end war was Private Henry Gunther, who died charging German troops 60 seconds before the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. On a personal note, my great-great-great uncle, Private Joseph Davis, United States Marine Corps, was killed in action in the Battle of Meuse-Argonne on October 3rd, 1918, just over 5 weeks before the armistice. A year later, President Wilson proclaimed November 11th, 1919, as the first commemoration of Armistice Day. President Wilson said, "To us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in the country's service and with gratitude for the victory, both because of the thing from which it has freed us and because of the opportunity it has given America to show her sympathy with peace and justice in the Council of Nations." As Major Seconder mentioned, the original concept for how we recognize veterans today was for a day observed with parades and public meetings and a brief suspension of business beginning at 11 a.m. on November 11th to honor veterans of World War I. The federal holiday we recognize today was approved by Congress in 1938, but it wasn't until 1954, following World War II and the Korean War, that Congress replaced armistice with veterans, amending the original act to commemorate November 11th as a day in America when veterans of all wars are honored. So today, we come together to honor and recognize all of our American service members, past and present, and salute you for your service to our country, both in uniform and out. I can cite many examples about the feat of our veterans, both in uniform and out, but I'll highlight just a few recent examples recognized and acknowledged by our Air Force, the Department of Defense, and the community in which a veteran lives. On June 22nd of this year, Lieutenant General James C. Slife, Commander, Air Force's Special Operations Command, presented 5 Distinguished Flying Crosses and 3 Air Medals to crew members from the 73rd Special Operations Squadron for their acts of heroism operating a Shadow 7-1, an AC-130J Ghost Rider gunship, flying nearly 2 hours supporting American and Afghan Special Forces troops who were ambushed and engaged in a firefight. Together, the 9 Air Commandos saved the lives of 88 American and Afghan Special Forces members. They also contributed uninterrupted cover for helicopter assault forces during landing and casualty evacuation, ultimately ensuring the rescue of wounded ground forces. Several of my personal friends and colleagues have been awarded such medals, and one of the most memorable quotes that I have from a previous ceremony is also from General Slife. I'll read that to you now. The most lethal part of any gunship is not the 25 millimeter. It is not the 45 millimeter, nor is it the 105 millimeter sticking out of the side of this big, beautiful airplane, referring to the AC-130U gunship. The most lethal part of the gunship is the crew. That's probably how then First Lieutenant Ralph Puckett Jr. felt atop Hill 205 on November 25th and 26th of 1950 in Korea, just doing his job with his crew. As Commander 8th United States Army Ranger Company, he empowered his company during an advancement lasting more than 24 hours, in which he intentionally ran across an open area 3 times to draw enemy fire and thereby allowing his Rangers to locate and destroy the enemy positions and to seize Hill 205. During the course of the night, the enemy launched a counterattack, but his Rangers were inspired. They are inspired and motivated by the extraordinary leadership and courageous example exhibited by Lieutenant Puckett, who despite taking mortar fire and grenade shrapnel, continually directed artillery support. For his heroic feat, President Biden posthumously awarded Colonel Puckett our nation's highest military decoration, the Medal of Honor, this year, May 21st, 2021. And just one more example of how our nation now honors veterans. Looking to years past, one veteran, long lost but not forgotten, will be reunited with his family next month in Hawaii, when the Department of Defense's Joint POW and Missing Personnel Office announced that Marine Corps Private First Class Walter L. Collier of Burbank, California, missing in action from World War II, was identified and returned to his family for burial with full military honors. On December 7th, 1941, Collier was assigned to the battleship the USS Oklahoma, which was moored at Ford Island, Pearl Harbor, when the ship was attacked by Japanese aircraft. The USS Oklahoma sustained multiple torpedo hits, which caused it to quickly capsize. The attack on the ship resulted in deaths of 429 crewmen, including Collier. Many of you here probably have your own stories to tell. Valiant unsung heroes, formally recognized or not, that you know or have known over the years. Some may call them war stories, and others may call them living history. Regardless, I don't think it is too presumptuous to say we who still wear the uniform of our military and all who came before us served or serve this country out of profound sense of duty and with honor, and with the understanding that the freedoms we have today are secured through our commitment, and those freedoms have been secured by those who came forward and served before us. And is our hope, no, our expectation, that those who selflessly volunteer to serve our nation's military in the future will continue to protect our great nation. Many of you still today serve our nation out of uniform through continued Department of Defense civilian employment, volunteering at military installations, showing your support to our military at ports of embarkation and debarkation, running a small business and hiring veterans, or expressing your final respect at the gravesides of our military fallen. You do these things out of duty, honor, and country. Very simply, we serve in or out of uniform out of our commitment to the values of dedication and sacrifice. We serve because simply it is an honor. General George Washington said in 1789, "The willingness with which our young people are likely to serve in any war, no matter how justified, shall be directly proportional to how they perceive the veterans of early wars were treated and appreciated by our nation." As our world changes around us and the Department of Defense evolves to meet the challenges presented in our future, some things endure, such as the need for our Air Force and sister services to counter threats to our nation and our way of life, and the dedication of our airmen, soldiers, sailors, Marines, guardians, and Coast Guardsmen who stand watch to that end. Also unchanged is our Department of Defense's most solemn obligation to care for our service members, particularly our wounded warriors and their families. In fact, our leadership has embraced this one as one of their top priorities, to develop and care for airmen and their families. This bond transcends the respect and admiration that active duty personnel have for those who came before them. and our veterans' appreciation for the valiant efforts of our service who currently serve. This bond also unites us in the common interest and shared imperative of strengthening support for military members and their families, past, present, and future, for it is both our benefit, active duty members and veterans alike, to ensure the success of our military. It is no surprise that our veterans and their families perceive this need. Veterans are still serving by volunteering hundreds of thousands of hours, serving communities at bases worldwide, and still exemplifying our core values, service before self, through shared time, dedication, and I'm sure a story or two. We too owe veterans both our gratitude and support. We all continue to work together to provide adequate and well-deserved care and support for our airmen who eventually will join the ranks of our veterans no longer serving. We also continue to develop and care for people and their families to ensure that when the time comes to don on civilian clothes, we can provide them and their families with the highest level of care and support as veterans that they will have so richly deserved as you, the veterans, deserves. These were the hallmarks of the military when you, our veterans, all served, and so they remain today. But one of the main differences in our services today, that when many of you served, is we are an expeditionary force. Our force is much leaner and more agile today to meet the challenges our leadership asks us to perform. Today, tens of thousands of us are deployed to locations across the globe, and an additional 100,000 of us are supporting the effort from our home stations, defending our nation and defending our nation's interests abroad. While our operations tempo is high, our nation's forces continue to set the standard for excellence. We are continuously reminded of the courage, commitment, and sacrifice offered on a daily basis. Our forces increasingly partner with the joint and coalition team to win today's fight. Their contributions span the entire spectrum from precision strike, airlift, air mobility, and intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, to more traditional roles such as convoy and installation security, disposing of improvised explosive devices, and reconstructing war or disaster-torn societies. And we in the Air Force strive to recapture acquisition excellence in our efforts these days to develop hypersonic weapons and fifth generation plus fighters, in addition to different space-based systems, and the other services are also likewise engaged. I can go on and on, but I prefer you would think me not to. But our forces today perform very capably and admirably and with the utmost commitment, as you, our veterans, did in your time in uniform. When today's forces are hailed for their merit, you, the veterans, spouses, extended family members, share in that praise because of the foundation of success that you helped establish. Now, these service members are your legacy, ladies and gentlemen, the result of the leadership, loyalty, and innovation of your years of honorable service. So, on Veterans Day, we all share a unique perspective of faithful service to our country and to those who have served before us. We call each other to give thanks for one another and for the time we have together, to pay tribute to those who have lost, and to say prayers for those serving in foreign lands. Today is Veterans Day, and today I salute you on behalf of a grateful nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Major Radloff. I'd like to also say that he flew here on his own dime, and he's taking leave of absence right now from his service. So again, thank you, Major Radloff, for coming to Dunwoody. So, I'd like to invite the Dunwoody High School Chorus as they sing a tribute to the armed services. So for those veterans and family members in the audience, if you so choose, when you hear your service song, please stand and be acknowledged.
First we fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. The army's on its way. Count of the king and starting strong. 2, 3, 4, up, 2, 3, 4 ahead we go. You will always know that the army goes rolling along.
Memorial Day and Veterans Day are both patriotic holidays honoring the military, but there's a significant difference between the two, aside from when they land on the calendar. Memorial Day, which falls on the last Monday in May, honors the men and women who died while serving in the armed forces. Veterans Day, today, observed every November 11th, recognizes all who have served in the armed forces. Regardless, it is our Dunwoody tradition to remember and reflect upon all our veterans who have passed away in the past year and all previous years. So recently our nation said farewell to former Secretary of State Colin Powell, who served in the Army for 35 years, rising to become the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And just this past Tuesday, as Mayor Deutsch mentioned, Georgia lost a great patriot, veteran and public servant, Senator Max Cleland, having served in Vietnam, the Georgia and U.S. Senate, and led the Veterans Administration. Let me tell you a brief story of what happened with Max Cleland when he was serving in Vietnam. In 1968, April 8th, he was a captain in the Army at the Battle of Quezon Son. Then Army Captain Cleland was ordered to fly on a helicopter to set up a radio relay station on a hilltop. When the helicopter landed, Cleland jumped out, followed by two soldiers. They ducked because of the rotor wash and turned to watch the liftoff of the helicopter. Cleland reached down to pick up a grenade that he had believed had fallen off his flak jacket, but it had actually been dropped by a fellow soldier. It exploded and the blast slammed him backwards, shredding both his legs and one arm. Due to the severity of his wounds, doctors amputated both of Cleland's legs above the knee and his right forearm. He was just 25 years old. And I had to think about whether I was going to state this or not, but when he was running for re-election in the U.S. Senate, some doubted his patriotism. So today we also remember our very own Sergeant Major Simon Jones, United States Army, who left us in June. For many years, Sergeant Major Jones was a fixture at these events and a beloved employee at Dunwoody Methodist. The Sergeant Major has left an indelible mark on our Army and in our community. We miss him. There are many others to think of today. So please rise for a moment of silence and the playing of taps performed by Mr. Kyle Shiflett. To those in uniform and the veterans present at the playing of taps, please render appropriate honors. May peace be with you all. Happy Veterans Day, and God bless America. Thank you.